It was another gut-wrenching day for Camp Mystic families. Good evening and thank you for joining us this Wednesday night. Today was the third day of hearings tied to the lawsuit filed against the camp where 27 people died in last summer's flooding. KLTV7's J.D. Conti has more on today's testimony and the judge's decision.
Started floating on, I'm sorry, let me take a breath here. It's okay. It's really hard to talk about this.
Another gut-wrenching day for Camp Mystic families and those who lived through the tragedy.
That whole road was a wall of water.
Glenn Yankee was a camp security officer. He's credited with saving dozens of campers. He got girls into a cabin where rising water forced them onto air mattresses, floating and holding on to hope.
They were sitting on the mattress, on the air mattresses. It was over my head.
27 people, 25 campers, and 2 staffers died. One of those was 8-year-old Seal Stewart. Her body has not been found. Her parents are suing the camp, saying they were ill-prepared.
Y'all could have had a million different evacuation plans. Nothing would have worked.
That's what lawyers for the camp argue, that little could have prepared campers for this.
70 miles of Guadalupe River, 3 trillion gallons of water.
Earlier in the week, both camp directors testified they weren't aware of the flood watch in place. Today, Yankee said they didn't have a designated evacuation site.
No one, to your knowledge, ever prepared a camper or counselor about where to go to a safer location if an evacuation order was given. True?
I believe so.
Britt Eastland, the camp's attorney, was also questioned. Documents showed his father, Dick Eastland, who died trying to save campers, was a past member of the Upper Guadalupe River Authority. This document showed they predicted the area would have a major flooding event in coming years.
He did the best he could with what we could do.
These hearings were set as Camp Mystic plans to reopen part of the camp, despite the protests of families. They plan to reopen their Cypress Lake campus, which was not damaged in flooding. Judge Maya Guerrera Gamble again ruled the camp cannot touch any flood-damaged areas and added another cabin to that order.
We are simply asking to preserve evidence so we can figure out what happened and get to the search for truth.
J.D. Conti, KLTV7 News.
There's another hearing in this case. It'll be scheduled for May the 12th by